Welcome to the deep dive. Sometimes the most action-packed dramas aren't on the big screen at all. They're actually unfolding right inside you, constantly at the molecular level, just keeping everything running.
That's so true. Little biological plays happening all the time.
Exactly. And today we're going to pull back the curtain on one of your body's two major control systems, the endocrine system. It's this, well, silent, powerful orchestrator, absolutely central to, who you are, how you grow, how you respond to everything.
Right. And while your nervous system gets a lot of the glory for its, lightning fast responses, think pulling your hand from a hot stove, the endocrine system, it works differently.
Slower, right.
Much slower, yeah. It uses chemical messengers, hormones, and they exert this really powerful, widespread, and remarkably long-lasting influence, sometimes for days even. It really is a master conductor influencing pretty much every cell in your body.
So what's our mission for this deep dive? What are we trying to unpack here?
Good question.
We're going to unravel the secrets of this amazing system. We'll identify its major players, the glands and the mighty molecules they produce, those hormones. We'll discover how these chemical messengers actually, speak to your cells, what triggers their release, and ultimately how they impact your daily life and your long-term health in profound ways. We've really dug into some key sources, especially a comprehensive human anatomy and physiology text, to pull out the most important stuff without, hopefully, overwhelming you.
Yeah, our goal is really to give you a clear, concise understanding. We want to look at the major endocrine structures, their functions, and, importantly, some crucial clinical insights, too. We want you to walk away with a solid, well-informed view on how this whole chemical orchestra keeps you ticking.
Okay, so let's start with the big picture. The body has two main control systems. The nervous system, like we said, uses those electrochemical impulses, super fast, precise responses.
Significance, yeah.
Right. But the endocrine system, it operates through hormones. These chemical messengers get secreted into your blood or lymph.
They travel.
They travel all over, regulating metabolic functions in countless cells. The responses are slower, definitely. There's a lag, seconds or even days sometimes. But once they start, they tend to last much longer.
And what's really fascinating is just the sheer breadth of processes these hormones regulate. It's incredible.
Like what specifically?
Well, everything from your growth and development to maintaining that delicate balance of water, electrolytes, nutrients in your blood. They manage your cellular metabolism, your energy balance, and even mobilize your body's defenses when you're stressed out. It's a system built for long-term integration and sustained effects.
Okay, now a quick distinction. Gland types. You have exocrine glands, like sweat glands, salivary glands.
Exactly. They release substances through ducts, onto surfaces, or into cavities.
But our focus today is on the endocrine glands. These are the ductless ones.
Correct. They secrete their hormones directly into the surrounding tissue fluid. Then the blood and lymphatic vessels just pick them up.
And the classic examples are
Pituitary, thyroid, parathyroid, adrenal glands, the pineal gland too. And then you have organs like the hypothalamus, which is really cool because it acts as a neuroendocrine organ. It links the nervous and endocrine systems.
A bridge between the two.
Precisely. Plus, organs like the pancreas, the gonads, ovaries, and testes, they have major endocrine tissue right alongside their other main jobs. Even the placenta is a temporary endocrine organ.
Right. And you mentioned something else, hormones versus other signals.
Ah, yes. It's helpful to clarify. True hormones are these long-distance signals traveling through your blood to influence targets far away. But the body also uses shorter-range chemical signals.
Like local messengers.
Kind of. Autocrines act on the very cells that secrete them, and paracrines act locally, but on different cell types nearby within the same tissue. For this deep dive, though, we're mostly focusing on those long-distance hormones and their systemic effects.
Okay, got it. So we have these chemical messengers, the hormones, circulating, but how do they actually work their magic? How do they, interact with cells? What determines how they travel and all that?
Yeah, it really all comes down to the hormone's chemical structure. That structure is key because it dictates whether it's water-soluble or lipid-soluble.
And why does solubility matter so much?
Because that determines how it gets transported in the blood, which is mostly water, right? It also affects how long the hormone lasts before it's broken down. And crucially, where its specific receptors are located either on the outside or inside the target cells.
Okay, so what are the main chemical types?
We generally classify hormones into two main chemical classes. The first, and the most common by far, are the amino acid-based hormones.
Okay.
These can range from really simple modified amino acids to short peptides, all the way up to complex proteins. And the key thing here is they're generally water-soluble, which means they cannot easily cross the fatty plasma membrane of cells on their own. They need help getting their message inside.
Okay, water-soluble, amino acid base. What's the other class?
And then we have the steroids. These are all synthesized from cholesterol.
Ah, like cholesterol derivatives.
Exactly. And interestingly, only hormones from your gonads, so the ovaries and testes and the hormones from the outer part of your adrenal glands, the adrenal cortex, are steroids.
And because they're made from lipids.
They are lipid-soluble, so they can easily slip right across the plasma membrane and get inside the cell.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me, that kind of aha moment. How does a hormone, which is floating around everywhere in the blood, manage to affect only specific cells, not just every cell it bumps into?
That is a fantastic question, and it highlights the absolutely critical concept of target cells.
Target cells, okay.
A hormone only influences the activity of those cells that have specific receptor proteins for that particular hormone. Think of it like a lock and key system.
Right, I like that analogy.
The hormone is the key, and only cells with the right lock, that specific receptor, will respond. When the hormone binds to its receptor, it triggers a change in that cell's activity. Maybe it changes membrane permeability, or activates an enzyme, or even tells the cell to start secreting something.
And how it communicates depends on whether it's water-soluble or lipid-soluble, right?
Precisely. For our water-soluble hormones, the amino acid-based ones, since they can't get through the cell membrane.
You need that external receptor.
Exactly. They act on receptors located on the plasma membrane surface. And these receptors typically trigger what we call second messenger systems inside the cell. The hormone itself is the first messenger.
Okay, explain that. Second messenger systems, like a relay.
Exactly like a relay race. Let's take the most common one, the cyclic AMP or CAMP signaling mechanism. Imagine this. The hormone, our first messenger, binds to its specific receptor on the cell surface.
Got it.
This binding activates a nearby protein called a G protein. Think of it like flipping a switch from off to on.
Okay, G protein activated.
This activated G protein then slides over and turns on an enzyme called adenylate cyclase.
Adenylate cyclase, right.
Now, this enzyme's job is to convert ATP, the cell's energy currency, into cyclic AMP or CAMP-AMP. And that CAMP is the second messenger.
Ah, okay. So the hormone stayed outside, but CMP carries the message inside.
Precisely. This CAMP then diffuses through the cell and activates other enzymes, often protein kinases, which triggers a whole cascade of phosphorylation reactions, basically adding phosphate groups to proteins, leading to the cell's specific response.
You mentioned amplification.
Yes. What's truly remarkable about this system is the amplification effect. Just one single hormone molecule binding to one receptor can set off a chain reaction that generates literally millions of final product molecules inside the cell. It's incredibly efficient.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is. Plus, the action of CAMP is usually brief because another enzyme, phosphodiesterase, quickly breaks it down. This ensures the control is tight and the response can be shut off quickly when needed. There are other second messenger systems too, like when involving calcium ions, but CAMP is a great example.
Okay, so that's water-soluble hormones using surface receptors and second messengers. What about the lipid-soluble ones, the steroids and thyroid hormone?
Right, for those it's a different story, since they can easily cross the plasma membrane.
They don't need the surface receptor.
Correct. They use what we call intracellular receptors and direct gene activation. These hormones simply diffuse right through the cell membrane.
Straight in.
Straight in. And they bind to a receptor that's waiting for them either in the cytoplasm or often directly inside the nucleus.
Inside the control center.
Exactly. Once the hormone binds to this intracellular receptor, the resulting hormone receptor complex then travels into the nucleus, if it's not already there, and it binds to a specific region of the cell's DNA.
It binds to the genes.
Essentially, yes. It binds to a specific DNA sequence associated with a particular gene, and this binding event acts like a switch, turning on that gene.
So it initiates transcription.
You got it. It prompts the cell to transcribe that gene into messenger RNA, or mRNA. That mRNA then moves out into the cytoplasm and directs the synthesis of specific proteins on the ribosomes, perhaps a new enzyme or a structural protein or something the cell exports. It directly changes protein synthesis.
It's just incredible how the body uses these different chemical languages to achieve such specific results. Okay, but what makes these powerful chemicals get released in the first place? What tells the glands, okay, time to release your hormone?
That's a crucial question. Most hormone release isn't just random, it's very precisely regulated, usually by negative feedback mechanisms.
Negative feedback, meaning?
Meaning that as the levels of a particular hormone rise in the blood, The hormone itself, or the effects it causes, then feeds back to inhibit its own further release.
Ah, so it stops itself from getting too high, keeps it in range.
Exactly. It maintains homeostasis, keeping blood levels within a narrow, healthy range. Now, we generally see three main types of stimuli that can trigger this hormone release.
Okay, what are they?
First, there are humoral stimuli. This is probably the simplest type. It's a direct response by the endocrine gland to changing blood levels of certain ions or nutrients.
Like the gland is directly sensing the blood chemistry.
Precisely. A classic example is your parathyroid glands. They constantly monitor the calcium levels in your blood. If blood calcium drops too low, the parathyroid glands are directly stimulated to release parathyroid hormone, or PTH.
And PTH works to raise calcium levels back up.
Right. And as calcium levels rise back to normal, that rising calcium then inhibits further PTH release. Simple, direct humoral control. Another example is insulin release in response to high blood glucose.
Okay, humoral stimuli. What's next?
Then there are neural stimuli. In this case, nerve fibers directly stimulate the endocrine gland to release its hormones.
The nervous system telling the endocrine system what to do.
You got it. The most well-known instance is during stress. Your sympathetic nervous system, the fight-or-flight division, sends nerve signals directly to the adrenal medulla, the inner part of your adrenal gland.
And that triggers?
That triggers the adrenal medulla to release adrenaline and noradrenaline, those catecholamines that give you that sudden surge of energy and alertness during stress.
Got it. So humoral, neural. What's the third?
The third type is hormonal stimuli. This is where many endocrine glands release their hormones in response to hormones produced by other endocrine glands.
Hormones controlling other hormones, like a chain of command.
Exactly. This is really the core of how your body's major endocrine control centers work. It often involves complex chains and feedback loops, particularly involving your hypothalamus and pituitary gland.
Can you give an example?
Sure. The hypothalamus releases specific releasing or inhibiting hormones. These travel just a short distance to the anterior pituitary gland and tell it to either release or hold back its own hormones. Many of the anterior pituitary hormones then travel through the bloodstream to stimulate other endocrine glands, like the thyroid, the adrenal cortex, or the gonads, to release their hormones.
Wow, so is it like a cascade? A hypothalamus, pituitary, target gland, final hormone.
Precisely. And then typically the final hormone produced by the target gland feeds back to inhibit both the hypothalamus and the pituitary, completing that negative feedback loop. It's a very elegant system of hierarchical control.
That makes sense. But can the nervous system ever, jump in and override these loops?
Absolutely. That's a key point. Your nervous system can modulate endocrine controls. It's not just a separate system operating in isolation. It can actually override or modify normal endocrine functions to maintain overall balance, especially during critical situations.
Like in severe stress.
Exactly. For instance, under severe stress, say, physical trauma, or extreme emotional stress, your nervous system can override the normal insulin controls and cause your blood glucose levels to rise significantly.
Even if insulin is technically supposed to be lowering it.
Right. The idea is to ensure your body and brain have more than enough fuel readily available to cope with the stressor. It's a clever built-in override mechanism for emergencies.
Okay, so we know how hormones get released, but you mentioned target cells having receptors. Why do some cells respond more strongly than others, even if they both have the right receptor? Is it just about receptor numbers?
That's part of it, but it's a bit more nuanced. A target cell's activation by a hormone actually depends on three key factors working together.
Okay, what are they?
First, obviously, the blood levels of the hormone itself. More hormone generally means a stronger signal. Second, yes, the relative numbers of receptors for that hormone on or inside the target cell. Generally, more receptors mean a more pronounced effect.
Makes sense.
And a third. The third factor is the affinity, or basically the strength, of the binding between the hormone and its receptor. How tightly do they stick together? A higher affinity usually leads to a stronger response, even at lower hormone concentrations.
And you said these receptor numbers aren't fixed, right? They can change.
Exactly. Target cells can dynamically adjust their sensitivity to a hormone by changing the number of receptors. When hormone levels are persistently low for a while, target cells might respond by forming additional receptors. This is called upregulation.
Making them more sensitive to the little hormone that is available.
Precisely. Conversely, if a target cell is exposed to prolonged high levels of a hormone, it can lead to downregulation. The cell actually decreases the number of its receptors for that hormone.
To protect itself from being overstimulated.
Exactly. It desensitizes the cell and prevents overreaction. It's another layer of precise control to maintain balance and prevent hormonal chaos.
That's really smart. And hormones don't always work in isolation, do they? I remember reading they can interact.
They certainly do. Hormones circulating in the blood together can interact in several interesting ways at the target cell level. We see three main types of interactions.
Okay, what are they?
First is permissiveness. This is where one hormone cannot exert its full effects unless another hormone is also present. The second hormone sort of gives permission for the first one to work properly.
Any examples?
Yeah, a good example is how thyroid hormone is necessary for the normal timely development of reproductive system structures. Reproductive hormones need thyroid hormones' permission to do their job fully during development.
Okay, permissiveness. What else?
Then there's synergism. This happens when more than one hormone produces the same effect at the target cell, and their combined effect is amplified. It's greater than the sum of their individual effects.
Like 1 + 1 = 3.
Kind of, yeah. A classic example is glucagon from the pancreas and epinephrine from the adrenal medulla. Both cause the liver to release glucose into the blood. But when they act together, the amount of glucose released is much, much higher than if either acted alone.
Okay, synergy. And the last one?
The last one is antagonism. This is pretty straightforward.
Right.
One hormone opposes the action of another hormone.
Like they're working against each other.
Exactly. The prime example here is insulin and glucagon regulating blood glucose. Insulin lowers blood glucose levels while glucagon raises them. They're antagonists, working together in opposition to keep glucose levels stable. These different types of interactions allow for really fine-tuned regulation of cell activity.
This is incredibly intricate. Okay, I think we're ready for the grand tour. Let's go gland by gland, and where better to start than the command center, right? The hypothalamus and the pituitary gland.
Absolutely. The pituitary gland, often called the master gland, though that's a bit misleading as the hypothalamus controls it, is this little pea-sized structure. It sits snugly in a bony cavity at the base of your brain, connected to the hypothalamus just above it by a stalk, the infundibulum.
And it's actually 2 glands in one, isn't it?
It is. It's fascinating. The pituitary has 2 distinct lobes with completely different origins and functions. You have the posterior pituitary, which is actually made of neural tissue. It's basically an extension of the hypothalamus.
So it doesn't make its own hormones.
Correct. It doesn't produce hormones itself. Instead, it acts as a storage and release site for 2 crucial hormones that are actually produced by specialized neurons up in the hypothalamus.
Yeah.
The hormones travel down the axons of these neurons to the posterior pituitary for storage.
Okay, and what are those 2 hormones?
They are oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone, or ADH.
Oxytocin, that's the one involved in childbirth, right?
Yes. It's a powerful stimulant for uterine contractions during labor. It operates on a positive feedback loop there. Contractions trigger more oxytocin, which causes stronger contractions, and so on. It also triggers milk ejection, the letdown reflex, in nursing women. But beyond that, research suggests it's also involved in things like social bonding, trust, and affectionate behavior, sometimes called the cuddle hormone.
Interesting. And ADH, antidiuretic hormone.
ADH is absolutely crucial for maintaining your body's water balance. Its main job is to tell your kidneys to reabsorb more water from the forming urine and return it to the bloodstream, thus producing less urine.
So it helps prevent dehydration.
Exactly. Its release is triggered when specialized sensors in the hypothalamus detect that your blood is getting too concentrated, meaning you're getting dehydrated. Now, if you have a deficiency of ADH, it leads to a condition called diabetes insipidus.
Not the same as sugar diabetes, right?
Not at all related to blood sugar. Diabetes insipidus causes intense thirst and the production of huge amounts of dilute urine, maybe 10-20 liters a day, because the body simply can't conserve water properly without ADH. Conversely, too much ADH can cause problems with water retention and electrolyte imbalances.
Okay, so that's the posterior pituitary storage for hyperthalamic hormones. What about the anterior pituitary?
The anterior pituitary, or adenohypophysis, is different. This is true glandular tissue. It manufactures and releases its own distinct set of hormones.
And how does the hypothalamus control this part?
It controls the anterior pituitary via releasing and inhibiting hormones. These travel from the hypothalamus down that stalk through a special network of blood vessels called the hypophyseal portal system.
A portal system, like a direct delivery route.
Exactly. It's a system of capillaries connected by veins, ensuring that those tiny amounts of hypothalamic hormones arrive at the anterior pituitary cells quickly and without getting diluted in the general circulation. It's a very efficient signaling pathway.
Smart design. Okay, so what hormones does the anterior pituitary make? Growth hormone is a big one.
Yes, growth hormone, GH, also called somatotropin, is a major player. It's an anabolic hormone, meaning it promotes tissue building.
How does it do that?
Well, it has direct effects, like mobilizing fats from fat stores to be used for energy, and decreasing the rate of glucose uptake by cells. This is called a glucose-sparing effect, making sure the brain has enough glucose. It also increases amino acid uptake into cells.
Okay, direct effects. Any indirect ones?
Yes, its major growth-promoting effects are actually indirect. GH stimulates the liver, skeletal muscle, bone, and other tissues to produce other growth factors called insulin-like growth factors, or IGFs.
IGFs, yeah.
Right, and it's these IGFs that then stimulate actions required for growth, like uptake of nutrients, formation of collagen and bone matrix, and cell division, especially in bone and skeletal muscle.
So GH is crucial for growing tall. What happens if it goes wrong?
The clinical implications are quite dramatic. If there's too much GH secretion, hypersecretion in children before their growth plates close.
They become giants.
Essentially, yes.
Oh.
It leads to gigantism, where they become abnormally tall, sometimes over 8 feet, but usually have relatively normal body proportions. If hypersecretion happens in adults, after the growth plates have closed.
The bones can't get longer.
Right. So instead, it causes acromegaly. The bones of the hands, feet, and face, particularly the jaw and forehead, thicken and soft tissues enlarge, leading to characteristic coarse features.
And what about too little GH?
Hyposecretion of GH in children leads to pituitary dwarfism. Individuals are short, maybe only 4 feet tall as adults, but usually have fairly normal body proportions. Thankfully, genetically engineered GH is available now for treatment if diagnosed early.
Okay, so GH is huge, literally sometimes. What else comes from the anterior pituitary?
It also releases several other crucial hormones, often called tropic hormones, because they regulate the secretory action of other endocrine glands. There's thyroid-stimulating hormone, TSH, or thyrotropin, which is exactly what its name says, stimulates the thyroid gland.
Makes sense.
Then there's adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH, or corticotropin, which stimulates the adrenal cortex to release corticosteroid hormones, like cortisol.
Okay, ACTH for the adrenal cortex.
Then you have the gonadotropin's follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH, and luteinizing hormone, LH. These regulate the function of the gonads, the ovaries and testes, stimulating gamete production and sex hormone production. They are pretty much absent before puberty.
FSH and LH for the gonads.
Right. And finally, there's prolactin, PRL. Its main role in humans is to stimulate milk production by the breasts. Its release is primarily controlled by an inhibiting hormone from the hypothalamus, dopamine.
So usually kept in check unless needed for lactation.
Exactly. Problems with prolactin, like hyperprolactinemia, too much prolactin, are actually the most frequent type of abnormality caused by anterior pituitary tumors.
Wow, okay. That's a busy little gland, the pituitary. Let's move down the neck now to the thyroid gland, the metabolic thermostat, you called it.
That's a great way to put it. The thyroid gland is this butterfly-shaped gland located in the anterior neck, just below the larynx. It has 2 lobes connected by a median tissue mass called the isthmus. Internally, it's composed of these hollow spherical structures called follicles.
Follicles? What's inside them?
The walls of the follicles are made of follicular cells, and these produce a glycoprotein called thyroglobulin. The central cavity, or lumen, of the follicle stores colloid, which is basically this amber-colored, sticky material consisting of thyroglobulin molecules with attached iodine atoms. This is where the thyroid hormone is actually derived from.
Iodine is key then.
Absolutely essential.
Yeah.
Thyroid hormone is unique in that it incorporates iodine into its structure. In fact, the main hormone secreted by the thyroid follicles is thyroid hormone, TH.
And what does TH do?
Oh, it's often referred to as the body's major metabolic hormone. It affects virtually every cell in the body. Its primary effect is to increase the basal metabolic rate and body heat production. This is called the calorogenic effect.
So it revs up metabolism?
It does. It also plays a crucial role in regulating tissue growth and development. It's absolutely critical for normal skeletal and nervous system development and maturation, and for reproductive capabilities. Plus, it helps maintain blood pressure.
It seems pretty vital. How is it made? You mentioned thyroglobulin and iodine?
The synthesis is quite interesting and unique because a significant part happens extracellularly within that colloid. Briefly, the follicular cells synthesize thyroglobulin and discharge it into the follicle lumen. They also actively trap iodide ions from the blood. The iodide is then oxidized to iodine, and this iodine is attached to tyrosine amino acids that are part of the thyroglobulin molecule. These iodidated tyrosines then link together to form T3 and T4, thyroxine.
Yeah.
Finally, the follicular cells reclaim the thyroglobulin, cleave off the hormones, and release T3 and T4 into the bloodstream.
T3 and T4, are they different?
Yes, T4, thyroxine, has 4 bound iodine atoms, and T3, triiodothyronine, has 3. The thyroid secretes mostly T4, but T3 is much more potent at the target tissues. Most T4 is actually converted to T3 in the peripheral tissues.
Okay. And how is its release controlled?
It's regulated by that classic negative feedback loop we talked about. Falling TH levels in the blood stimulate the anterior pituitary to release TSH. TSH then travels to the thyroid and stimulates it to release more TH. As blood levels of TH rise, they inhibit the release of TSH from the pituitary, closing the loop.
Makes sense. What happens when this goes wrong? Hypothyroidism.
Right. Hypothyroidism, or underactive thyroid, can have several manifestations. In adults, severe hypothyroidism is called myxedema. Symptoms include a low metabolic rate, feeling chilled, constipation, thick dry skin, puffy eyes, lethargy, and mental sluggishness if it results from a lack of iodine.
The thyroid can't make TH even though TSH keeps stimulating it.
Exactly. The pituitary keeps pumping out TSH, telling the thyroid to work harder, but it can't make the hormone without iodine, so the follicular cells produce more and more unusable colloid, and the gland enlarges. This enlarged thyroid is called a goiter.
Ah, I've seen pictures of goiters.
Yeah. And severe hypothyroidism in infants, often due to maternal iodine deficiency or a congenital defect, is called cretinism. It leads to intellectual disabilities, short disproportionate body size, and a thick tongue and neck. Early diagnosis and treatment are crucial.
Okay, that's too little TH. What about too much? Hyperthyroidism.
Hyperthyroidism is the opposite problem of overactive thyroid. The most common cause is Graves' disease. This is an autoimmune condition where the body makes abnormal antibodies that mimic TSH.
So they constantly stimulate the thyroid.
Exactly. They bind to the TSH receptors and continuously stimulate TH release. Symptoms are basically the opposite of hypothyroidism. Elevated metabolic rate, sweating, rapid irregular heartbeat, nervousness, weight loss despite adequate food intake. And a characteristic sign of Graves' disease can be exophthalmos protrusion of the eyeballs.
Right, the bulging eyes. Okay, that's thyroid hormone. Is there anything else from the thyroid?
Yes, there's another population of endocrine cells in the thyroid found in the connective tissue between the follicles. These are called parafollicular cells, and they produce a hormone called calcitonin.
Calcitonin, what does it do? Related to calcium.
It is, but its physiological role in humans is actually thought to be pretty minor, especially compared to parathyroid hormone. At pharmacological doses, though, calcitonin does have a bone-sparing effect. It inhibits osteoclast activity, the cells that break down bone, and stimulates calcium uptake into the bone matrix. So it can lower blood calcium levels, but its normal day-to-day contribution seems minimal.
Okay, so TH is the main event from the thyroid. Let's move on to its neighbors, those tiny parathyroid glands, often hidden, right?
Yes, usually there are 4 of these tiny yellowish-brown glands embedded in the posterior aspect of the thyroid gland. Sometimes there are more, and they might be located elsewhere in the neck or thorax. Despite their small size, they're absolutely essential for life because of the hormone they secrete, parathyroid hormone, PTH.
And PTH is all about calcium.
All about calcium. PTH is the single most important hormone controlling the calcium balance in your blood. Calcium is crucial for so many things: nerve impulse transmission, muscle contraction, blood clotting, so its levels need to be precisely controlled.
So how does PTH control calcium? Does it raise it or lower it?
BPH increases blood calcium levels. Its release is triggered by falling blood calcium levels.
Okay, low calcium triggers PTH. How does PTH raise it?
It acts through 3 main target organs. First, it stimulates osteoclasts, those bone-resorbing cells, to digest some of the bony matrix and release ionic calcium and phosphates into the blood. Second, it enhances the reabsorption of calcium by the kidneys, preventing it from being lost in urine. And third, it promotes the activation of vitamin D by the kidneys.
Vitamin D, why is that important?
Because activated vitamin D is required for your intestines to absorb calcium from the food you eat. So, indirectly, PPH enhances dietary calcium absorption.
Wow, so it hits bone, kidneys, and gut via vitamin D. That's comprehensive.
It is. And as blood calcium levels rise due to PTH's actions, that rising calcium then inhibits PTH, release another classic negative feedback loop.
What happens if this system breaks down? Too much PTH.
Hyperparathyroidism is usually caused by a tumor of a parathyroid gland. It results in calcium being leached from the bones, making them soft, deformed, and prone to fracture. The resulting high blood calcium levels, hypercalcemia, can depress the nervous system, leading to lethargy and weakness, and also contribute to kidney stone formation.
And too little PTH.
Hypoparathyroidism, often resulting from trauma or accidental removal during thyroid surgery, leads to low blood calcium or hypocalcemia. This makes neurons much more excitable.
More excitable? What does that mean?
It means they fire off impulses more easily. This can cause symptoms like tingling sensations, muscle twitches, tetany, prolonged muscle spasms, and if severe, can progress to convulsions and even respiratory paralysis, which could be fatal. So PTH is absolutely critical.
Definitely sounds like it. Okay, let's move on to the glands perched on top of the kidneys, the adrenal glands. Suprarenal.
Right. That's right, suprarenal above the kidney. Each adrenal gland is structurally and functionally like two endocrine glands rolled into one. There's an outer adrenal cortex, which makes up the bulk of the gland. It is derived from glandular tissue, and an inner adrenal medulla, which is actually modified nervous tissue, part of the sympathetic nervous system.
Two glands in one. Let's start with the outer part. The adrenal cortex, it makes steroids, right?
Correct. The adrenal cortex synthesizes well over 24 steroid hormones, collectively called corticosteroids, all derived from cholesterol. The cortex itself is structurally zoned, and each zone produces different types of corticosteroids.
Okay, what are the zones and hormones?
The outermost layer is the zona glomerulosa, and it mainly produces mineralocorticoids. The most important of these is aldosterone.
Aldosterone, what does it do?
Aldosterone's main job is to regulate the electrolyte concentrations, particularly sodium Na+ and potassium K+, in your extracellular fluids. It primarily targets the kidney tubules, stimulating them to reabsorb Na+ from the forming urine back into the blood. And because water follows salt osmotically, this also helps conserve water, maintaining blood volume and pressure. It also enhances potassium secretion into the urine.
So it helps keep blood pressure up and balances electrolytes. How is its release controlled, not ACTH?
ACTH from the pituitary has only a minor effect. Aldosterone release is mainly regulated by two other mechanisms. The renin-angiotensin-aldosterone mechanism, which is activated when blood pressure or blood volume falls, and directly by the plasma concentrations of potassium. High potassium directly stimulates aldosterone release.
Interesting. What about problems with aldosterone?
Hypersecretion, or aldosteronism, can lead to hypertension and edema due to excessive sodium and water retention, and also accelerated excretion of potassium, which can cause muscle weakness or even paralysis.
Okay, zona glomerulosa makes aldosterone. What's the next layer?
The middle layer, the zona fasciculata, is the largest layer, and it mainly produces glucocorticoids. The primary glucocorticoid in humans is cortisol.
Cortisol, the stress hormone.
It's often called that, yes. Cortisol's main role is to help the body resist stressors and maintain blood glucose levels. It influences the energy metabolism of most body cells. Its primary metabolic effect is gluconeogenesis, forming glucose from fats and proteins.
Making new glucose.
Right. It also mobilizes fatty acids from adipose tissue to be used for energy, and enhances the sympathetic nervous system's vasoconstrictive effects, helping to maintain blood pressure. However, excessive levels of glucocorticoids have undesirable effects.
Like what?
They depress cartilage and bone formation, inhibit inflammation, depress the immune system, and can disrupt cardiovascular, neural, and gastrointestinal function. That's why long-term use of glucocorticoid drugs, while effective for inflammation, has significant side effects.
And how is cortisol release controlled, ACTH?
Yes, cortisol release is primarily promoted by ACTH from the anterior pituitary, which in turn is triggered by CRH from the hypothalamus.
Yeah.
Rising cortisol levels then feed back to inhibit both CRH and ACTH release. There's normally a distinct daily rhythm with levels peaking shortly after we wake up, but acute stress of any kind can override this rhythm and cause a surge in cortisol release.
And problems with cortisol are well known, right? Cushing's.
Exactly. Hypersecretion of glucocorticoids leads to Cushing's syndrome. Symptoms include persistent elevated blood glucose, severe diabetes, dramatic loss of muscle and bone protein, water and salt retention leading to hypertension and edema. Patients often develop a characteristic moon face, fat redistribution causing a buffalo hump on the back of the neck, easy bruising, and poor wound healing. Often it's caused by pituitary tumors releasing too much ACTH, or increasingly by clinical doses of glucocorticoid drugs.
And the opposite, too little cortisol.
That's Addison's disease, which generally involves hyposecretion of both glucocorticoids and mineralocorticoids. Symptoms include weight loss, low plasma glucose and sodium levels, high potassium levels, severe dehydration, and hypotension. It requires lifelong hormone replacement therapy.
Okay, mineralocorticoids, glucocorticoids. Is there a third zone?
Yes, the innermost layer of the cortex, the zona reticularis, mainly produces small amounts of adrenal sex hormones or gonatocorticoids. These are mostly weak androgens, male sex hormones like DHEA, which can be converted to more potent androgens like testosterone, or even into estrogens in other tissues.
What do these adrenal androgens do?
Their contribution is usually insignificant compared to gonadal hormones, but they are thought to contribute to axillary and pubic hair development, female sex drive, and they provide the bulk of estrogens after menopause when ovarian function ceases. Hypersecretion can cause adrenogenital syndrome, leading to masculinization.
Okay, that covers the adrenal cortex. What about the inner part, the adrenal medulla, nervous tissue, you said?
Right. The adrenal medulla is essentially a knot of nervous tissue, part of the sympathetic nervous system. Its cells synthesize the catecholamines, primarily epinephrine, adrenaline, and norepinephrine, noradrenaline.
The fight or flight hormones.
Exactly. When the body is activated by short-term stressors, the fight or flight response sympathetic nerve fibers signal the adrenal medullas to release these catecholamines into the bloodstream.
And what do?
They basically amplify and prolong the effects of the sympathetic nervous system, increase heart rate and blood pressure, divert blood flow to the brain, heart, and skeletal muscles, dilate the airways, and cause the liver to release glucose into the blood for quick energy. Epinephrine is generally the more potent stimulator of metabolic activities and bronchial dilation, while norepinephrine has a greater influence on peripheral vasoconstriction and blood pressure.
So it's the body's emergency response amplifier.
A very good way to put it. Rarely, tumors of the adrenal medulla, called pheochromocytomas, can cause uncontrolled sympathetic nervous system activity, leading to symptoms like hyperglycemia, rapid heartbeat, hypertension, intense nervousness, and sweating.
Wow, the adrenals are truly the stress responders. Okay, let's shift gears. What about the pineal gland? Tiny thing in the brain.
Yes, the pineal gland is a tiny pinecone-shaped gland hanging from the roof of the third ventricle in the diencephalon, deep within the brain. Its main endocrine product is melatonin.
Melatonin, the sleep hormone.
It's strongly associated with sleep, yes. Melatonin concentrations in the blood rise and fall in a daily or diurnal cycle, peaking at night and making us drowsy. Its release seems to be indirectly controlled by visual pathways that respond to the intensity and duration of daylight.
So light inhibits melatonin release?
Generally, yes. Light input helps synchronize our internal biological clock, located in the hypothalamus, which in turn influences melatonin secretion. Besides regulating sleep-wake cycles, melatonin might also play a role in timing puberty, and it has antioxidant properties.
Interesting little gland. Now, we've covered the major dedicated endocrine glands, but you mentioned earlier that lots of other organs have endocrine functions too.
Absolutely. It's really important to remember that endocrine tissue is widely distributed throughout the body, often within organs that have other primary functions.
Yeah.
It truly highlights how integrated our body systems are.
Like the pancreas. It's mostly digestive, right?
Primarily, yes. The bulk of the pancreas produces exocrine digestive juices. But scattered among these are tiny clusters of endocrine cells called pancreatic islets, or islets of Langerhans. These islets are like little fuel sensors.
And they contain different cell types.
They do. The two main ones are alpha cells, which synthesize glucagon, and beta-galactosidase cells, which synthesize insulin.
Glucagon and insulin, the antagonists we mentioned earlier for blood sugar.
Exactly. Glucagon is a hyperglycemic agent. It raises blood glucose levels. Its main target is the liver, where it promotes the breakdown of glycogen to glucose, glycogenolysis, and the synthesis of glucose from other molecules, gluconeogenesis, and then the release of that glucose into the blood. Its release is mainly triggered by low blood glucose levels.
Okay, glucagon raises blood sugar. And insulin.
Insulin is the hypoglycemic agent. It lowers blood glucose levels. Its main effect is to enhance the transport of glucose from the blood into most body cells, especially muscle and fat cells, thus lowering blood glucose. It also inhibits the breakdown of glycogen and prevents the conversion of amino acids or fats to glucose. Beyond glucose lowering, insulin is also important for protein synthesis and fat storage. Its release is primarily triggered by elevated blood glucose levels, like after a meal.
And when this system fails, we get diabetes.
Yes. Diabetes mellitus (DM) results from either hyposecretion too little or hypoactivity resistance to insulin. This means glucose can't get into the cells properly, so blood glucose levels remain high.
And there are two main types.
Correct. Type 1 DM, previously called juvenile onset, occurs when the insulin-producing beta cells are destroyed, usually by an autoimmune reaction. Insulin is essentially absent, so patients require insulin injections or infusions to survive. It typically develops relatively early in life.
Okay, type 1 is insulin absence. What about type 2?
Type 2 DM previously adult onset, but now increasingly seen in younger people too, is far more common, maybe 90% of cases. In type 2, insulin is produced, often initially even at high levels, but the body's cells become resistant to its effects. This is called insulin resistance. Eventually, the beta cells may become exhausted. Type 2 is strongly associated with obesity and sedentary lifestyle.
And it can sometimes be managed with lifestyle changes.
Often, yes, especially early on. Weight loss, improved diet, and regular exercise can significantly improve insulin sensitivity. But many people eventually require oral medications or even insulin therapy.
You mentioned the 3 cardinal signs of untreated diabetes.
Yes. When large amounts of glucose are lost in the urine, it acts as an osmotic diuretic, pulling water along with it. This leads to polyuria, huge urine output. The resulting dehydration stimulates polydipsia, excessive thirst. And because the body's cells cannot take up glucose for energy, they're essentially starving, which triggers polyphagia, excessive hunger, and food consumption. It's like starving in the land of plenty.
That makes sense. And severe diabetes can lead to other problems, too.
Yes, when sugars cannot be used as fuel, the body starts mobilizing fats, leading to high levels of fatty acids in the blood. The liver converts these into ketone bodies, or ketones. If this happens excessively, the ketones accumulate, making the blood acidic, a condition called ketoacidosis. This can be life-threatening. Conversely, excessive insulin administration can cause hyperinsulinism, leading to dangerously low blood sugar, hypoglycemia, which can starve the brain and lead to disorientation, convulsions, unconsciousness, and even death.
So managing blood sugar is incredibly critical. Okay, pancreas covered. What about the gonads, ovaries, and testes?
All right, besides producing gametes, eggs and sperm, the gonads also produce steroid sex hormones, largely identical to those made by the adrenal cortex, but in much larger amounts. Their release is regulated by the gonadotropins, FSH and LH, from the anterior pituitary.
So what do they produce?
The ovaries in females produce estrogens and progesterone. Estrogens are responsible for the maturation of the female reproductive organs and the appearance of secondary sex characteristics at puberty. Progesterone works with estrogens to regulate the menstrual cycle and promote breast development.
And the testes?
The testes in males produce primarily testosterone. Testosterone initiates the maturation of the male reproductive organs, causes the appearance of male secondary sex characteristics and sex drive, and is necessary for normal sperm production and maintaining reproductive organ function throughout life.
Got it. And the placenta, temporary organ.
Yes, the placenta is a remarkable temporary endocrine organ that sustains the fetus during pregnancy. It secretes several steroid and protein hormones that influence the course of pregnancy, including estrogens, progesterone, and human chorionic gonadotropin, HCG, the hormone detected by pregnancy tests.
Amazing. Are there any other surprising hormone producers?
There really are. It seems like we're constantly discovering new endocrine roles for various tissues. For example, adipose tissue, fat, releases leptin, which signals satiety to the brain, and other hormones like resistin and adiponectin that influence insulin sensitivity.
Fat talks to the brain.
It does. The gastrointestinal tract is studded with enteroendocrine cells, releasing hormones like gastrin, secretin, and cholecystokin, CCK, that help regulate digestion. The heart produces atrial natriuretic peptide, ANP, which helps lower blood volume and pressure by making the kidneys excrete more sodium and water.
The heart makes a hormone.
Yep. The kidneys produce erythropoietin, EPO, which stimulates red blood cell production, and renin, which initiates that renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system for blood pressure regulation. Even the skeleton produces osteocalcin, which influences insulin secretion and fat storage. The skin produces cholecalciferol, the inactive precursor of vitamin D when exposed to UV radiation. And the thymus gland, located deep to the sternum, produces hormones involved in the normal development of T lymphocytes and the immune response.
It truly is a body-wide network, isn't it? Just incredible integration.
It really is. And it develops early on. Endocrine glands actually rise from all 3 embryonic germ layers. Mesoderm produces the steroid hormones, while the others produce the amino acid-based ones.
Does this system change much as we age?
For the most part, the endocrine system operates relatively smoothly throughout life, but changes certainly occur with aging. The rate of hormone secretion might change, how quickly hormones are broken down or excreted can alter, and the sensitivity of target cell receptors can decline.
Any specific examples?
Well, growth hormone levels definitely decline after puberty, contributing to muscle atrophy in old age. Aldosterone levels tend to fall. The gonads become less responsive, ovarian function declines significantly leading to menopause, with the drop in estrogen linked to problems like atherosclerosis and osteoporosis. Testosterone production also wanes in males, though more gradually.
What about glucose tolerance?
That often declines with age. It might be due to reduced insulin secretion or, more likely, declining receptor sensitivity to insulin, making older adults more prone to type 2 diabetes. Thyroid hormone synthesis and release may diminish, potentially slowing metabolism. However, parathyroid hormone levels tend to remain fairly stable. Interestingly, because estrogen helps protect women from the demineralizing effects of PTH, postmenopausal women become much more vulnerable to osteoporosis.
It's clear that this system is deeply interconnected with everything else in the body.
Absolutely. You can trace connections between the endocrine system and literally every other body system: skin, bones, muscles, nervous system, cardiovascular, immune, respiratory, digestive, urinary, reproductive. They all influence and are influenced by hormones.
It's just an amazing testament to the body's intricate design, isn't it? The balance, the communication, from the moment you start growing to how you handle stress every day to just the basic balance of fluids and salts in your blood. It's all orchestrated by this incredibly subtle yet powerful chemical symphony. Understanding the system really gives you a profound appreciation for just how elegantly your body functions.
It really does. It's a system of constant, silent negotiation and adjustment that underpins pretty much our entire physiological experience.
Yeah.
It's quite humbling when you think about it.
So considering this delicate balance and the, widespread effects of these mighty molecules, what do you think is maybe the single most surprising or perhaps challenging aspect of living in a world that's constantly being influenced by our own internal chemical orchestra? Something for our listeners to ponder.
That's a great question to leave people with.
Thank you so much for being part of our deep dive family today. We hope you found this exploration of the endocrine system as fascinating as we do. Until next time, keep diving deep into the amazing world around you and, of course, within you.